In the spring of 1989, the elements for a perfect storm were coming together in Beijing. By the late 80s, a new mood was being felt in the socialist world. Old ways were being challenged. In China, too, students and intellectuals were finding new voices, openly discussing taboo topics like democracy and freedom. Even within the Communist Party, there were those who saw reform as the only way forward. And then, on April 15th, a momentous death. Hu Yaobang, once the head of the Chinese Communist Party, had spent the last 2 years of his life in obscurity. He had fallen foul of hardliners for his reformist views. What followed was a staggering outpouring of grief and anger. Thousands of students flocked into Tiananmen Square, and while efforts were made to keep students out, they repeatedly broke through police lines. And amazingly, in a country with no free press and tight controls on foreign media, the world watched these events unfold. By coincidence, the world's media happened to be in Beijing for a historic summit between China and the Soviet Union. From expressions of grief, the students moved to demands, including a new appraisal of Hu Yaobang, a free press, and the right to protest. And it was infectious. Workers, civil servants, and others all joined the crowds in Tiananmen. Similar demonstrations broke out in cities throughout China. Domestic media began reporting on the events with unprecedented independence. Upping the ante, the students declared a hunger strike. In meetings with government officials, their demands grew more strident. But after weeks of soft persuasion by moderate officials, the party elders had had enough. The reformist General Secretary Zhao Ziyang made an emotional last public appearance. In a surprise visit to the square, he told students, "We have failed you." And yes, that's Wen Jiabao, China's current prime minister, standing right next to him. That night, Zhao was removed from office, and Prime Minister Li Peng declared martial law. The goddess of democracy is soon unveiled and becomes a rallying point for the hundreds of thousands now gathered there. The occupation continued until the night of June the 3rd. Tanks rumbled through the streets of Beijing. And in the early hours of June 4th, 1989, the People's Liberation Army opened fire. The Chinese Red Cross initially reported 2,600 people died over the 2 days, later retracted that figure. The official figure stands at 241 dead and 7,000 wounded. Perhaps the most enduring image of Tiananmen is what happened on June the 5th. This lone protester stood defiantly in front of a line of tanks. The world watched and held its breath until onlookers dragged him away. The tank man captivated the world, and to this day, his identity remains a mystery. Christy Lou Stout, CNN, Hong Kong.